The day Belle Thornwick decided my family's century-old lake belonged to her precious son was the day. She picked a fight with the wrong rancher. 6 a.m. 3 police cruisers screamed up my drive, gravel exploding under their tires like machine gun fire. Diesel exhaust mixed with the steam from my coffee. The HOA president was already filming from her spotless Range Rover, narrating her victory before the story began. Deputies stepped onto my porch and asked about trespassing on land my great-grandfather homesteaded in 1887. Her influencer's son had been charging strangers $200 to fish my private lake, the same water where my grandmother's ashes rest. When the officers asked for paperwork, Belle slid a manila folder across my kitchen table and smiled like she was about to auction off my inheritance. "Historic water rights," she said. "Whispering Pines Township and community recreation." The problem was simple. Whispering Pines did not exist until 2019. Augustus Holloway filed our patent in 1887, and the ink of that truth outlives every trendy subdivision. I have read enough deeds, plats, and water filings to spot a forgery before the toner is cool. Grandpa taught me a better way than shouting at liars. Let them talk while you gather proof. I photographed every page, walked the officers to bedrock markers, and kept my voice low and steady. They left with a report and no citations. Belle promised escalation and filmed my face like a trophy. When quiet returned, it came with the sounds that make a life. Meadowlarks stitching notes over pasture. Leather creaking in the barn. The slow breath of cattle in the shade. This is not just land. It is legacy. 12 spring-fed acres, where our first cabin stood, where 4 generations were born, learned to swim, and were laid to rest. I am Garrett Holloway, 45, divorced. My daughter Skylar is off at college. I have worked this ranch since I could hold reins, and I plan to die here. 5 years ago, a developer jammed 200 McMansions onto the section next door and named it Whispering Pines Estates. I signed an emergency vehicle easement because neighbors help neighbors. Then Belle arrived in a bright tracksuit and a brighter smile. Cattle smell. Native grasses look unprofessional. Could I mow the prairie so her view felt curated? I laughed once. That was my mistake. Her son found my lake and brought friends with drones and tripods. Tolerance turned to trespass. Trespass turned to business. That business was theft with a filter. Bureaucracy can be a weapon if you swing it fast enough. 2 weeks after the porch standoff, County Inspector Martinez knocked with apology in his eyes. "Formal complaint," he said. "Illegal restrictions on water access." We walked the line together and matched GPS coordinates to brass markers. He shook his head. Documentation perfect. Boundaries clear. Still, a report had to be filed because Belle wanted a paper trail that created the illusion of a dispute. She hosted a community safety meeting at the clubhouse and warned newcomers that a feudal rancher was contaminating children's watersheds and threatening families. Rumors bloomed that inheritance taxes had broken me and a forced sale was coming. In ranch country, that is an attempt at character execution. My answer was work and proof. I hired the county's best surveyor for GPS mapping. $800 bought satellite, coordinates that showed her immaculate fence crossing 3 feet into my land for 200 yards. I set 8 high-definition cameras with night vision and cloud backup on every approach to the lake. The ring of steel posts sinking into hardpan sounded like drums. I logged every visit with dates and plates because adverse possession quietly steals what you do not defend. The cameras paid off. Saturday morning, Tucker arrived with a full film crew, lights and boom mics, and a catering truck, to shoot an energy drink commercial on what he called his family lake. Audio captured him telling the director that he had been coming here since he was a kid. He was born in Phoenix and moved to this county 5 years ago. Later footage showed a rustic dock being built on my shoreline, while he charged clients extra for authentic tradition. My system recorded every board in his cheerful breakdown of profit margins. That is commercial trespass and property damage with a side of fraud. Belle pushed a different angle. A domestic disturbance call claimed I had threatened her near the eastern fence. Deputy Collins arrived with a body camera and a tight jaw. We pulled the exact time from my cloud account. I stood 15 feet away and explained boundaries at normal volume. She shouted about rural terrorism. I walked away. He watched the whole thing and frowned. She would still file for a restraining order. That is the trick. The accusation becomes evidence for the next accusation. I stayed calm and formal and filed my own harassment complaint listing 47 incidents across 6 months, each supported by photos and timestamps. Then I retained Mackenzie and Associates. They confirmed what my bones already knew. The 1887 patent carries senior water rights under prior appropriation. No HOA, county office, or state agency can pry that lake open without due process and just compensation. Bell tried the attractive nuisance gambit with my insurer, demanding an easement and security patrols on my dime. The company leaned toward easy settlement until I sent the clip of Tucker, bragging about $47,000 earned in 3 months selling access passes to my property. Channel 7 still ran a hit piece that showed crying kids holding signs at my fence. Threats arrived by email. The pump house was vandalized. Wires cut. Panel smashed. Tire tracks that matched Tucker's lifted truck pressed into wet soil. The sheriff said there was not enough for charges. I brewed darker coffee and kept stacking proof. Tucker's Free the Lake party hit like a plague of ring lights. 200 RSVPs and a promise of peaceful reclamation that translated to fireworks. Drones, coolers, and a sponsored playlist. They lined the county road and marched over my pasture like tourists through a church. By 3 a.m., a Roman candle found dry grass and 40 acres of prime pasture hissed under volunteer hoses. Dawn looked like a crime scene. Trampled reeds, bottle shards glittering like landmines, calves bawling for their mothers, 3 underage arrests. Tucker and Bell vanished before deputies arrived. Then the emergency services bill hit my mailbox. It was addressed to my ranch, not the subdivision. That strangeness tugged at a thread in my mind. I pulled 5 years of old records and kept finding the same pattern. Services dispatched to Whispering Pines were billed to my parcel. I was paying to be harassed. Frustration sent me to my grandfather's rusted cabinet in the tack room. It smelled like oil, leather, and snow. Under tractor manuals sat a yellowed folder titled Rural Service District. 1962. The language changed everything. When the county formed a rural service district, our ranch was named the Anchor Parcel. The ranch owner became the district administrator with the power to approve or deny municipal service contracts, audit expenditures, terminate for cause, and refer irregularities to prosecutors. That authority moved with the deed. I had been administrator for 3 years without knowing it. I called my attorney. "The statute still stands," she said. "For years you have subsidized services that mostly benefit the subdivision. They used those very services to hound you. Now you control the valve." We pulled 20 years of financials and the smell of rot rose off the spreadsheets. Security billed at $400,000 a year for patrols worth maybe $80,000. The vendor shared an address with business partners of Bell's husband. Landscaping for the HOA pool and clubhouse disguised as emergency right-of-way maintenance. Tennis court lights laundered as public safety illumination. They had turned a public budget into a private wallet and counted on the rancher not to look. Sunshine laws opened the door. As administrator, I could demand every contract, every invoice, every timesheet. We set a 3-phase plan. First, certified notices that established my authority and launched a full audit with a 30-day deadline. Second, terminate non-essential contracts that bled the district, while keeping essentials intact at fair market rates so families were not harmed by their board's sins. Third, present evidence in a public hearing where the law requires the lights to be bright. Allies lined up. A county commissioner who campaigned on protecting longtime families. Environmental groups tracking the damage caused by social media tourism. Even residents inside the subdivision who were tired of rising fees and invisible security. The clock started. The certified letters landed like thunder. Effective immediately, all service district expenditures required administrator approval. Unauthorized use of public funds for private subdivision amenities would be treated as embezzlement under state law. Bell panicked and blasted an emergency HOA email about rural extremism that threatened community safety. She hired a Seattle crisis firm with homeowner money and no board vote. Sock puppet accounts bloomed overnight with accusations that I abused animals and polluted water. Tucker posted a tearful video claiming I had threatened to make him disappear. Sponsors pulled out. Then came the fence cuts. 3 lines were sliced where old cameras had blind spots. Cattle drifted onto Highway 93, and the narrative wrote itself. Dangerous and unstable rancher. Except my blind spots were closed. Infrared cameras and audio mics caught a lifted truck that every rancher in the valley could identify by tread and 3 hooded figures with bolt cutters. One voice said, "Make it look like the rancher lost it." Deputies arrested 2 local boys before lunch. Tucker said he was home editing. His truck GPS said otherwise. That afternoon, I signed termination notices. Bloated security was canceled. Emergency landscaping was canceled. Event coordination was canceled. Essential services remained at real prices. Subdivision patrols jumped from $30,000 to $180,000 per year. Road maintenance became an $85,000 line item on HOA books. EMS required prepayment. Homeowners opened their mailboxes and met reality in the form of a $3,200 assessment. The board cracked. 3 directors resigned rather than co-signed fraud. Residents demanded the books. Bell crossed my pasture in designer heels and offered a $50,000 cash bribe if I would drop legal action and let Tucker use the lake for personal visits. My body camera captured every syllable, including her admission of accounting irregularities. I asked if the money came from public funds, skimmed from my tax payments. Her face told the truth even before her mouth moved. Skylar lined up a follow-up with Channel 7. Elderly homeowners said Bell had threatened mortgage reviews through her husband's bank if they refused to sign complaints. An environmental scientist showed shoreline damage and nesting disruption. My accountant rolled in with a tape long enough to rope a steer. Nearly $2 million skimmed in 5 years. The county called a public hearing. Sunshine rules. All cameras welcome. The night before I drove to town, pressed our original 1887 patent flat on the kitchen table, and listened to the lake move in the dark. The land waits, then it moves. Commissioners' chambers smelled like floor wax, and old coffee, and the kind of decisions people tell their grandkids about. The room was full. Ranchers in clean shirts. Subdivision families clutching assessment letters. Environmental advocates with clipboards. Cameras perched on tripods. Commissioner Janet Torres gavelled us to order. I placed the 1962 district documents on the lectern and felt the weight of 4 generations settle across my shoulders. I explained the authority built into the district. I described how HOA leadership diverted public funds into private amenities while using those same services to harass my family and monetize our private lake. Then we let the exhibits speak. Security billed at $400,000 for coverage worth $80,000. Landscaping for a private clubhouse disguised as right-of-way work. Tennis lights passed off as public safety. Screens showed Tucker building a dock and bragging about revenue. Audio captured hooded saboteurs, planning to make me look dangerous. Finally, the bribe played for the room in Bell's own voice. Silence followed. You could hear the lights hum. Bell's lawyer objected to tone. Commissioner Torres told him to sit. Testimony followed like rain. Neighbors explained how they were pushed to sign false complaints. Elderly residents admitted they feared mortgage reviews if they did not cooperate. An environmental scientist presented before and after images that knocked the breath out of the room. The votes took 6 minutes. Unanimous. All HOA-linked service contracts terminated pending investigation. My administrator authority affirmed. A forensic audit ordered. Referrals sent to the Attorney General, the FBI white-collar unit, and the IRS. Sheriff Collins announced arrests for conspiracy, filing false reports, and criminal mischief. Federal tax cases were opened. The headline the next morning said what the land already knew. HOA president arrested in rural service district fraud. 6 months later, justice tasted like hot coffee on a cold porch while dawn painted the lake. Bell pled out and received 18 months plus $400,000 in restitution. Tucker received probation and community service and surrendered his truck and camera gear. 3 accomplices served county time and paid restitution. Our civil suit settled for $500,000. Whispering Pines elected decent leadership and signed the Holloway Accord, a formal recognition of historic ranch operations and a permanent firewall against HOA interference. A standing injunction made commercial activity on my property an automatic felony. The lake healed. Waterfowl stitched silver lines across morning water. The cattails whispered old names. With recovered funds, we launched the Rural Heritage Protection Fund. In 6 months, we supported 47 families under HOA pressure. The legislature passed the Rural Property Rights Protection Act, nicknamed the Bell Bill, with transparency mandates and felony penalties for HOA financial abuse. A year later, 5,000 people gathered for Rural Heritage Days on our meadows to celebrate stewardship rather than spectacle. If someone tries to steal your heritage, do not settle for a small win. Make it impossible for them to try again. Tell me where you are watching from. Share your own HOA story. Subscribe if justice felt like air in your lungs.